Boom, it's live. Yep, it is live. Perfect. Okie dokie, let's put a title in here. Title will be AZREN is in a funky, funky's a funny word, funky mood. So let's do a live stream. Rant about the things that annoy you about those learning a new language. Not a ton that really annoys me. A couple things though. Would be number one. I think a lot of people think it's just easier to learn a language than it really is. They don't view it as a skill that takes time. A lot of people are just not aware per se. It's kind of like when someone goes into a new diet and expects results really quickly and then they don't and they're really surprised. I think that's something that happens. I don't think it annoys me per se, but something that I think about. Yeah, I think some people, that's probably the biggest thing. I don't think it's much more than that. I think some people, I've been realizing this more and more. I used to think that you can essentially just, the most important thing is that you should be putting in like the hours and put in the work to learn the language. I used to think if you do that, you're basically guaranteed to achieve a certain level of fluency, until I've recently realized that. I realized a lot of people don't actually take the right steps whatsoever. So even if they do put lots of hours and they're not going to become fluent, I realized that recently. I didn't actually fully realize that before. So that's something I put more thought into, that some people literally don't have any, they don't know like even where to begin to learn a language. It's like, yeah, I'll take a university class. Yeah, I'll take this. And they're thinking that whatever strategy they're using is going to work for them. And maybe it will work to an extent, but I didn't realize how the normal person, not language learning enthusiasts, but the normal person, how they actually oftentimes don't know what they should do to learn a language. So something I might talk about more than I used to, but we'll see. Top 3 mistakes that Chinese learners make. Let me think. Top 3 mistakes that I've seen. Based on my experience, top 3 mistakes that Chinese learners make. I think number 1, a lot of them that I have seen come in with not the greatest attitude. They, for whatever reason, this is actually, you got me on an interesting topic. For whatever reason, people view Chinese as a more complex language than other languages. Like if someone goes to learn French, like actually the number of times people have commented to me, children, adults, like people, that are like, you speak Mandarin, but you're not Chinese. Like that comment. But no one ever says, oh, you speak French, you're not French. Or you speak Spanish, you're not Spanish. Or you're not from Spain, you're not Peruvian, you're not whatever. That kind of thing people don't say, but they will say, what? You're not Chinese, why do you speak Mandarin? And so I think there's a concept of Mandarin just being so complex, so hard. And of course it is hard, no question about it, but that is interesting. It's something I've noticed. And so often people go into Mandarin with the wrong mindset, which then affects their learning. It's kind of like if you go into French thinking that, oh, French is going to be hard but not too bad. When you hit a hard concept, you'll be like, oh, I could work through this, right? I knew it would be hard, but it won't be too bad. So you kind of put that lens on, those glasses on, when you look at French challenges. But in Mandarin, a lot of people go in with, oh, this is going to be so hard. So the second they hit a challenge, they're like, oh, I knew it, so hard. And then they struggle with it, right? So that's probably number 1. I think number 2 would be, I think similar to any language, they don't necessarily put enough time into the language. And I think this is a big one for me. I thought it was common sense, and I'm realizing more and more now that I don't think it is common sense. I think one thing I've always done, and it just sort of made sense to me, is whenever I've learned languages out of my own passion, I've always done it in ways that, generally speaking, not always, but a lot of my actions that I'm taking in that language, I'm interested. Like I'm interested in the things that I'm doing. Like if I'm going to learn the language, I'm going to do it in a way that is interesting for me. Not always, but generally speaking, that's a rule I would follow, and I follow. And that's why I listen to music, I'll watch TV things, like I try things, right? And I don't often try, how do I say this? I don't often try and do things that are way above my level. Sometimes I will on purpose. I'm going to push myself down because I know with languages specifically, when I'm at the bottom like motivation level. For languages only, for everything else in life, no, but for languages only, when I'm at the bottom, I get in this weird zone where I get really competitive with the world and I want to show everyone up. Only with languages, because I know I'm capable. Everything else, I'm not like that. But like, when I'm down, in most cases, I'm down, I'm really upset. But with languages, that's the exception. I will go and put myself in really high things that are way above my level to push myself. But generally speaking, that's not a great strategy. And generally speaking, I don't always do that. I don't always put myself in those positions because that's not healthy. It's not how you learn languages, generally speaking. So I think a lot of people sometimes will think that, oh, I'm going to immerse myself. I'm going to go live in China. I'm going to go live in blah, 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 blah. Thinking it's going to magically teach them, but it's not always the case. And then, yeah, so I think that's kind of it's interesting. I think a lot of people make those common mistakes, not just in Mandarin, but in general, I think that happens. But how old are you, and when did you start learning languages? So I am almost 25 years old, actually, almost 25. I started technically speaking, well, I guess everyone, I almost answered your question in a very literal way, which would have been very not useful. I almost said, yeah, I started learning languages when I was a baby, like everyone, but that would have been a stupid answer. Anyway, so I guess the real answer is when I was 5, because I went to a French school and I didn't speak French, so that's the real answer of when I started learning languages. And then, do you see yourself teaching at a university? Nope, absolutely not. Well, maybe. Actually, that's an interesting question, actually. Probably not. Let's say 90% chance no, because I don't really... Yeah, 90% chance no. If I find something that I'm really passionate about, that I want to dig into further and like do research on as a professor, but probably not. 90% chance no. Yeah, let's keep going. So I'm learning Spanish, and I'm Cuban, so I feel so much pressure to sound perfect that it completely backfires. Now I just keep posting even when the videos aren't perfect. Interesting, I didn't know you posted videos. I'll have to check them out. Yeah, I think it's normal. It's like me, like technically my first language is Gujarati, but I don't sound perfect in Gujarati. Like my accent's not perfect, my vocabulary is not perfect, but I definitely feel that pressure too, especially if I'm with other Indian people. Like, I feel that pressure, like, man, I really should be better. But that mental pressure 9 times out of 10, or like 99 times out of 100, doesn't actually really help. Now, does it? I don't think it does. In my experience, it doesn't. Right? When you pressure yourself too much, it doesn't usually help. When it comes to learning languages, does the public school system in your country work, basically? How does it work? Does it work, etc.? I think it depends on your school, depends on your teachers, it really depends on your experience. I think it's like any country, or some people learn, some people don't. I will say this though, we have a French immersion program where kids are in school and they go to school all in French. It's I would say it's okay in my experience. Like a lot of people, they do okay in it and it works. A lot of people it doesn't work. However, for example, if you look at I don't know, I'm not educated in this area, but based on what I've seen in some other countries that have English programs, sometimes kids go through like 13 years of English and they can't speak a word of English. Versus if you go through French immersion, there's a higher percentage of people that come out of French immersion able to speak French at a very, very good level. Like I've seen more of that. Like, it's actually funny when I talk to people who've gone through French immersion, they usually say, oh, I'm so bad at French, but they say that without having perspective on what most people's French is when they go through French in school, or most people's English is when they do English in school, or most people's Mandarin is when they go through school. Like, it's actually at a relatively high level, and they can understand most things, they can communicate most messages, maybe not with perfect grammar, but they can do it decently well. So our immersion system, in my experience, is not bad. We also have a bilingual system where you do English and another language. Generally, my experience of bilingual schools is also not bad. So that's kind of where I stand on those, but...